I watched my publication date stroll past me while the world quickly burned. An American flag, nothing more than a swastika on fire. February 23rd, 2025. My novel should have been completely written, edited, and set out to sail in the big bad waters infesting with other authors, bigger and better than myself. But suicidal tendencies possessed everything in my being that I used to think was motivation. I haven't showered in a week, and my appetite is non-existent, either because I can't afford food, or I'm too sick to my stomach to eat anything. Reruns of vintage horror films and favorite television shows blend in the background. My forehead feels like it's stuffed with mucus. Great. Another new virus to sweep the nation. A black, blinking line stares at the disassociating man who claims today is the day that novel will become a finished, heart-throbbing story. One to pull your strings. Yeah, okay. If those strings belong to a previously owned harp from the thrift store. Good night. 2. Who needs a cell phone to disassociate? My mind might as well be comatose. I heard today on the news, veterans and disabled folks are being cut off from government assistance. Yet, they voted for him. Why? Screw it. I can't handle politics today. Ring around shit. Where's my manuscript? Ashes, ashes, and we all fall down. Seriously though, I lost my notes, manuscript, and laptop charger. Damn this messy home office. Know what? Hell with it. Let's get drunk. 3. Last night I dreamt about a mysterious man dressed as a bright blue elephant. He was dancing joyfully, and his voice sounded muffled inside the mascot's head. I sat there quietly, watching him jump from table to table, surprised his large slipper-like boot didn't slip on one of the party plates. What felt the most strange was his smell. Yeah, I know. Who could ever have a sense of smell in one's dream? But I did. He smelled putrid. The elephant might have been brightly colorful and clean. Beg to differ. Inside that mascot's torso, there had to have been shit. Inside the plastic see-through eyes were death flies. When he dropped to all fours and made terrible trumpet sounds, I could hear the winged insects swarm around his face. Kept making animal trumpet noises. Yet, all I could hear were the flies. 4. I tried being productive today. Instead, I ended up checking social media first and wasted all my energy arguing with some racist moron whose main catchphrase was, "Prices will drop," and he didn't Nazi salute. Later, I went to get a $8.99 burger meal. Pretty sure food poisoning has come to kill me like King Joffrey. Gonna lay down and call it for today. Might be 1 in the afternoon, but it's always bedtime somewhere. 5. Children sang joyously while linking their hands together, circling the stained blue elephant. A simple nursery rhyme that went, "Mr. Whooper, kind and strong, respect your elders and get along. Stomp your feet and sound your horn. It's always time to play, no matter what, if it shines or storms." They began skipping merrily, the pace of their small sneakers increasing speed. Before the second verse began, I woke up to knocking on my door. My apartment was pitch black, and the television wasn't turned on. Matter of fact, I unplugged it in case my foot kicked the remote again while sleeping.
Philip, answer this door, you disgusting bum.
Fuck, I said, lifting my dead weight out of bed. Crust caked on my bottom lash, and when opening the door, Frank gladly observed it.
Good afternoon, Thin Crust. Does that eye booger come with a side of infection? Let me get that for you.
He reached his finger towards my eye, and I smacked his hand away. I coughed, as if that would distract him from watching me flick the tan speck off. What do you want, Frank?
You know, a little smoochy here and reach around there. What do you mean, what do I want? I don't know. How about telling me why did you fall off the face of the earth? What the hell have you been doing anyways? Jerking off and boozing?
I almost clapped back at Frank with my usual witty smart mouth, but realized he had been half correct. Only details missing were mental breakdowns, screaming at the walls, and a 1,000-yard stare at my empty laptop screen. Tell Raider words they'll have a novel by me before November, I said, closing the door. Frank propped his dress shoe in between the thin slot of light. Half of his face carried heavy determination that weighed down his handsome features. Frank went from piercing blue-eye life of the party to pure pressure enforcer in what felt like seconds.
Look, I might joke around more than anyone ever should, but Phil, I need to level with you, man. We've all been calling your phone trying to get a hold of you, you know that?
I fought the urge to kick his foot out my door.
What's going on? Stop hiding behind yourself and let someone inside. I don't care if it has to be the mailman at this point. Phil.
His foot retreated from the threshold, and my door thudded shut. Frank's voice masked behind the entrance, and I went dragging myself back to bed. 6. Last night, my dream contained him again. This time, he wore only the mascot head, and underneath was a tank top and boxer briefs. I watched him sit in a recliner, hysterically laughing while holding a cigarette between his index and middle finger. That same hand held warm beer. A bowl of cereal, rainbow-colored loops, floating like life rafts in a pool of yellowish-brown milk, sat on the coffee table. Somebody's home can be the visual representation of their mind, and seeing inside his thoughts was nightmare fuel at its best. He admired himself on television. The name, Mr. Whooper, in a highlighting font engulfed the screen. As the letters bounced away, he shouted,
"Welcome to the land of fun, where sunshine sings, flowers talk, the mountains can be reached if you believe in yourself."
After that heavy, courageous statement, he coughed, and his past self came on screen to repeat the same phrase, but in a much more joyful tone. Tobacco spit began dripping from under the elephant's head, and before the nightmare finally ended, he turned to me and said,
"Hello, boys and girls. Do you want to touch my trunk?"
7. I've been researching Mr. Whooper lately. His stage name, entertainment career, crime records, and an entire list of unbelievable stories. My writer's block has broken down its wall, and what was missing found its way to my fingertips. I descended into his depths of madness, at first involuntary, but now I am indulging in this freak's brain. Holy shit, what a rush, seeing multiple articles about what I can only define as cruel reality with the elements of fiction. Gregory Stratt, 40 years old, was born in Louisville, Kentucky. During childhood, Greg didn't receive the best education, and his parents were absent. His backwood town, named Hickle Barbara, very redneck of them, huh? Disregarded him since birth. The mother died from an accidental exhaust incident while high on meth. She was found, mouth gaped open with gray smoke clouding the garage. Meanwhile, Greg's father had been camping inside an abandoned house after paying for 5 minutes of oral treatment from Francine Smith, aka Hickle Barbara's very own prostitute, better known as Slurpee the Herpy. This entire incident occurred while he was at school. The sheriff picked him up during dismissal time and delivered him the bad news. What was most disturbing was Greg laughed. After a long period of silence, he broke into outlandish laughter. When the court placed him in foster care, he laughed there too. Normally, children give violent tendencies or suicidal indications when such level of trauma occurs. Yet, he began coloring cheerful pictures of animals with alien characteristics and colors: green cats, red giraffes, yellow alligators, purple wolves, and blue elephants. 8. Last night I found Circus O'Yum, located on the outskirts of Hickle Barbara. Frank woke up, highly irritated by my midnight call, but soon after explaining the idea for my next book, his demeanor changed.
Holy shit! Hold my peanuts, Phil. You're telling me this story has only been covered by 2 news channels? Oh, baby boy, I thought you'd been holding out. Oh, buddy, you've been cooking. As my goddamn sissy son says, let him cook,
Frank said, exploding in celebration. His Jersey accent and laugh faded as our call was placed down on his kitchen counter so he could pop champagne. Don't get too excited, Frank. There's one last thing we need to do. He picked up the liquor-soaked phone and said,
And what's that? You plan on interviewing the guy before you finish writing the rest?
No. I tried getting an interview and the prison warden took one look at me and told me to make like eggs and beat it. Also, Gregory has denied all visitation and interviews. No money or good behavior to lighten his sentence could persuade him. Frank, remember back in the day when I wrote about that haunted nursing home?
Yeah?
He said hesitantly. Hickle Barbara is a secluded small town that will refuse my request without fail. We have to
break in and snap some pictures for special edition prints? Phil, I told those motherfuckers you knew business. I told them right to the coke-sniffing noses. I'll swing by in an hour, buddy. Road trip.
9. Glacial needles pelted the front windshield. Our vehicle maneuvered between a winding road and dead winter tree branches on both sides of us. Frank hummed whatever classic hit rock song from the 80s during his college years. It's hard to imagine how much of a party machine he must have been, because even now the party continues.
Oh, Phil, you don't know anything about this,
he said, before performing an air guitar solo. Felt nervous for 3 reasons. 1, his driving was extra reckless during snowstorms. 2, hard to keep your hands on the wheel while playing invisible notes. From the looks of it, his 3rd finger loved the G chord. 3, we are about to break inside of an abandoned family entertainment restaurant. We went through town without raising suspicion. No one was in town to spread news about our approach. Stores were closed, and those who lived there had their doors locked tightly and window blinds shut. Hickle Barbara was old and fragile, so winter must have been defeating to everyone who lives here. 10. The parking lot of Circus O'Yum was blanketed in snow. Distantly, through howling wind and sharp frostbite, we saw an empty boarded square building. Above, where double doors used to be, the sign displaying itself to a miserable town who couldn't care less about it hung downwards. Bright blue, pink, and yellow letters that no longer shine bright for children's birthday parties, kept from touching the ground by wires and 2 metal rods. Frank peeked between weak wood. He had a crowbar in his right hand and chose to try the front entrance. We already decided without talking to each other an alarm system would probably have coughed up its power by now, and electricity had to be cut off. I highly doubt a town like Hickle Barbara had the funds for some dump like this to be running yearly. Also, the horrific history behind Circus O'Yum ruined the last illusion for outsiders who believed there once was hospitality here. Frank wedged the crowbar's curved side behind the middle board and thrusted his entire body back. I kept on lookout duty to avoid doing the hard work. Look, I'll admit to being a lazy piece of shit sometimes, but Frank cannot do the same. He gets a 30% cut for each book sale, and all he does is shove the product down people's throat. As I gotten used to hearing wood cry behind me, suddenly glass shattered.
Screw it. We'll just crouch underneath. The best I can do is those 3. They must really not want anyone inside, because who in their right mind nails 6 goddamn boards? Frank said through heavy breathing. Frank bent to his knees and entered first. I sheepishly followed him, listening to the glass crunch under our heels. Tables covered in torn plastic disposable cloth and party streamers lined above them stood in the space of time. Dust debris went spiraling around us. The stage had one animatronic, and it was a hound dressed like an old-fashioned jazz player. Frank sat on a small chair while I took photos of the place. My phone's flashlight revealed its decrepit shape and age. Cobwebs, dust, outdated decorations, and the entire atmosphere felt otherworldly. Outside, we could still hear the blizzard from the broken front door. A whisper through the wind said, "It's easy to get paranoid when breaking into an enclosed location." But when Frank tilted his head toward the stage, that confirmed my ghostly curiosity. The fuck was that?
He said, locking eye contact with me. I don't know. Are minds playing tricks on us? Distantly, on the left side of the party room, we heard what sounded like an aluminum pizza tray toppling over. Immediately, Frank gripped his hip and it surprised me. I forgot the handgun he owned. Remember not so long ago when I talked about laziness? Yeah, Frank may have been lazy, but definitely not a coward. He went to the sound, and my imagination began to create different scenarios. An old homeless squatter staying here during the winter. Maybe security checking for intruders. And me remembering, oh shit, we are those intruders. My last thought was ghost. I am not your typical believer of the paranormal, so creepy things that go bumping in the night are last on my mind. Frank vanished behind the silver door leading into the kitchen area. A small circle, coated in dust, barely made out a shape. What if he accidentally shoots someone? I kept thinking until an aluminum chair went flying over a party table. My brain froze, yet my feet ran faster than the subconscious fear trapping me inside its web. I ran toward the kitchen door, and before my hands sprawled out to escape from whatever was crawling between the tables, a beam of light came blinding me. The power brought back to life Circus O'Yum with godly revival. Stage lights flickered on, and T-Bone the Hound played his saxophone. Rockin' Ruckus Rooster beat his drum, and Berlin Barracuda sang in a raspy tone. The full animatronic band performed their classic hit song, Run, Whooper, Run. Now my brain and feet were on the same page, and that's being hypnotized, much like the children who once cheered in the audience.
Run, Whooper, run. Follow your trunk to the sun. Run, Whooper, run. To Circus O'Yum to have fun.
All around me, children of all ages stared into my soul while clapping, crying, begging, and never opening their mouths. They were mannequins of flesh. Through the aisle of tables, Mr. Whooper carelessly stampeded between the kids in party hats, his broad shoulders knocking them over. I could hear their cries muffle as he stomped what I'd assume is their skulls.
Don't touch my trunk,
he said in such a jolly voice. I turned to the kitchen door, only to meet Frank bashing his way out. He fell face first. The impact sounded like meat stuck to a fragile surface. A crimson reddish brown substance peeled off the floor when I turned Frank around and felt him gasping vile air in my face. His face hung from the bottom of his chin. His teeth protruded through exposed gums, and his nostril holes now bloody cave canals. But what made me truly sick, until I involuntarily vomited on Frank's exposed face, was the unblinking eyes staring at me while they convulsed in their sockets. My puke clogged his nostrils, making it harder to breathe. I panicked, trying to pick the sludge out from his last resort of breathing. Frank could only feel what must have been like picking a booger with a scalpel or talon. Stumbling in front of us, only wearing a stained, dim t-shirt and elephant head, was Gregory Stratt, holding a jagged piece of glass. The same glass from the front door. Greg lowered his gaze at me, while under his pudgy, hairy stomach, covered and tangled with God only knows, was his short, stubby, infected mushroom penis. It smelt as if expired cottage cheese was stored inside the tip. He began furiously masturbating while shouting,
Welcome to Circus Soleil. Grab your friends and treat yourself to games. Treat yourself to food. Soda pop clothes. Touch my dick. Rub my cloak. Spit on my cock. I truck.
Suddenly, large blue foam hands lifted me from behind and sent me crashing through a party table. An enlarged headless elephant stood next to the human body, wearing its lost face. Greg went behind the remaining body of Mr. Whooper and drove his erect stub into its rear. Mr. Whooper went on all fours, revealing its endless void of teeth inside of its body, and when Greg started thrusting from the back, it sparked like an engine and ran at me. 1,000 layers of saw teeth vacuumed everything in its sight, including chips of wood from the tables and chairs. I could hear Greg moaning within the undertones. The animatronic band played their set while we played one round of morbid tag. Wood chips, plastic, and blood from the dead children filled the air. Poor Frank was engulfed by the torso, his legs effortlessly bent in inhumane fashion and flung around like inflatable car lot tube men. Looking back one last time, I saw both of them struggle to reach me under the broken door. Greg had a desperate look in his eye. He stuck his left arm in the torso's mouth and laughed while it shredded into chopped bits. When he still couldn't fit, the right arm went next. By the time I locked myself inside the car, Greg was halfway across the parking lot, crawling towards me like a humanoid slug from some horror sci-fi movie. My hands shook when the car needed to heat up, and Greg finally got to his feet after doing many strange worm-like movements. The blue elephant head still awkwardly resting on his shoulders. I could see it, no matter how bad the snowstorm had gotten. "Fuck you, Mr. Whooper," I shouted once he got too close for comfort and the car heat came on. My right foot slammed on the gas, accelerating through thick snow, causing me to swerve in circles. Mr. Whooper felt all 4,095 pounds of automotive hit him like a giant baseball bat. When I gained control of the car again, I watched in awe as the torso stuck between the broken door became a black hole, swallowing everything, including 3 feet of snow to eat Greg. To gain back what makes Mr. Whooper whole. His feet were devoured first, and then his armless upper half. The elephant head attached itself back to its torso, tightening its rightful position. Mr. Whooper stared at me one last time once he was fully assembled and faded into darkness. 11. Hello? My name is Sheriff Shepard from Angel Hill Valley Police Department. I've tried searching town, but Hickle Barbara is completely empty. The storm gotten out of hand, I reckon, because Ohio and half of Kentucky are blacked out. Me and other departments were called on a missing persons report. An old-looking California fella, about 50-something, and a fancy rider who probably came down the way to pick fun at little town folk. We already found their car. They weren't far from that abandoned kids' restaurant, Circus or something. Found a tape recorder in the glove box. Haven't seen one of these goddamn things since a kid. Anyways, I've been listening to these ramblings and gotta say, whatever new drug is out there in LA must be strong. Anyways, I need to get back to searching for them. Maybe I'll backtrack to investigate where Philip Grimwald said they were last. Safe to say, Circus is back in town.